So I thought I'd just start with a little warm-up exercise, a story, because I'm going to talk a little bit about family hubs and sustainability. But every time someone talks or mentions to me sustainability, I think of the story of the 18 camels. And I'm looking at blank faces, which is great. Okay, there's a really old story about a man who was a camel farmer. And on his deathbed, he said to his 3 sons, "I'm going to leave you my legacy. I'm going to leave you with my camels." He said to his eldest son, "Son, you have been by my side, working with me through all kinds of weather. For you, I'm going to leave you half of the camels." "Great," said the eldest son. Said to his next son, his middle son, he said, And you know, you've worked hard now and then, but you haven't quite put in the work of your older brother. So I'm going to leave you a third of the camels." He said to his youngest son, he said, "Well, you've had quite a good innings, really, haven't you? You've had lots of fun, but you haven't really worked as hard as your brothers. So I'm going to leave you a 1/9 of the camels." Now, the problem was, he only had 17 camels. And, you know, I'm no maths expert, but actually dividing 17 camels in half and then by a third and then by a 1/9 is quite difficult. So the brothers started arguing about how they were going to do this, and it invariably meant that one was better off than the other or the others. So anyway, the story goes that their wives got together. I don't want to make any assertions that the wives might have had a pragmatic outlook on the situation. But the wives got together, maybe they brought in the wider family, and they all had a discussion about what they were going to do. And actually, they realised that someone down the village had an extra camel. And actually, if they could borrow that extra camel, guess what? They would have 18 camels in order to be able to give the eldest brother 9, the middle brother 6, and the youngest brother 2. So that's what they did. They went and borrowed the camel. They put the camel in the flock. They divided them up. So the oldest brother, he got 9. The next brother, he got 6. And the youngest brother got 2. 17 camels. So then they were able to take back the 18th camel to the person they'd borrowed it from and say, "Thank you very much." Now, the reason I tell that story, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, you know, come on, just follow me. It is actually, you know, there's a lot we can do. One, by pooling our thinking together, but 2, when someone's willing to give us just that little bit of investment. And that's really important when we think about family hubs and the sustainability of them. So I'll move through my slides now. So in Westminster, we started on our family hub journey in 2016. And, you know, the reality was money was tight. And in order to deliver an effective early intervention service, we were going to have to do things differently. I think we didn't actually materialise a family hub until 2 years later. But actually, any transformation requires people to buy into what you're trying to do. And we were really thinking that we wanted to create a system that everyone could buy into. So very much seeing the family hub as the delivery vehicle for our early help offer. And very much thinking about family hubs promoting Best Start for Life, but actually supporting families through the whole journey of their child's childhood and development. I think one of the important things is recognising the potential that the family hub has in the community, because it's not just about the buy-in of professionals, it's actually the buy-in of the whole community. For us, the family hub wasn't about a physical space, the family hub was about something that everybody could connect to. And I was just thinking that Elaine mentioned that family hubs are about building relationships and making connections between different services, but actually importantly, making connections with the local community so that the family hub becomes theirs. And I think that's really, really important, again, when we think about sustainability, because if the ownership is with the community, if the ownership is actually with the people who are using the services and benefiting from the services, actually what tends to happen is other people start to buy in. And the more people buy in, the more they're invested, and the more they're invested, the more sustainable the actual model becomes. So for us, right at the start, it was thinking beyond a building, thinking about how the hub connects with primary healthcare services, nursery schools, primary schools, secondary schools, the youth sector, and that bit about the voluntary and community sector. I think there was quite a lot of talk when I arrived just before lunch about outcomes. And actually, you could put all of the outcomes in the family hub and expect everyone to deliver everything. Well, that's not really going to work. But actually, what can be delivered through the family hubs absolutely has an impact on outcomes. Again, when we think about best start in life, but also when we think about children's attainment and then children's health. But of course, I think what we're all here to do is to see children blossom. And we all want to see children happy and healthy and learning and engaging. And I think that's been really important to us. We've thought quite a lot about how parents can engage with the family hub, and I think very often I hear it said all of the time, it takes a village to bring up a child. Well, actually, the family hub is that village, and the family hub, depending on which partners are involved, actually starts to make connections with different parts of the communities who perhaps sometimes as professionals we don't always immediately think of. Let's face it, I think everyone probably in this room would recognise that investment in the early years is the best investment that you can make. We all know that the early years system isn't the best funded system that we have. So it becomes really important that if we're going to talk about the best start for children, that actually we're thinking about what contributions everyone makes in order that we're all in it together, creating that sense of a village of services through the family hub. Of course, when we talk about sustainability, and I think we're probably all in positions where we're thinking about the savings that we're having to make in our services as the next round of budget talks come up. The more we can do together, the more we can pool what we've got, like they did with the 17 camels that became 18. The more we can do together, actually, the bigger our offer can be and the further it can reach. And when I think about doing things together, it's not just about the professional services. It's also what the community is bringing to the table. If we're going to value family hubs, if we're going to invest in them, we need the community invested in them. And the best way to get them invested is to make them part of it. Actually, some of our best services are now being delivered through parent panels, thinking about what services the specific family hubs are going to offer, but also through maternity champions, parenting champions who have been through the service, improved their approach to parenting, and then want to pay it back to others. They want to share what they've got out of the programme and then ensure that actually they can support other families who might be experiencing similar difficulties themselves. I think the thing for me, someone said to me when I was talking about sustainability, oh my goodness me, in Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea, you weren't either area to receive the additional family hub model. So, when we think about sustainability, we'd like to still think that the DFE was going to invest in family hubs. And I think the important thing for me is, if this matters, and I think it really does, then there has to be commitment, and that commitment very often does require that there is a financial contribution. And for me, it's about, even with a little bit, actually what we see is people then can bring a little bit from their funders, and very quickly, once it's all put together, actually you can do quite a lot with it. Just seeing through my notes, I think, and for me, I think the really important thing is there are bits of money available. It's finding where they are and actually being able to utilise them to lever in more. So, many of us have been supporting new families, migrant families, in the contingency hotels. Actually, there's quite a lot of money that comes with the migration money that comes into local authorities. Are we making sure we're utilising that through the family hubs, which, certainly in Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea have become a lifeline for those families? There's money from the Home Office for lots of the migrant families. Are we making sure that money from the Home Office is coming into the family hubs in order that we're properly leveraging it? And of course, the voluntary and community sector, we know that actually a little bit of our investment in those services enables them to leverage in much more from different funders. Just move on. I think, again, Elaine was talking about the outcomes in terms of children being safe, healthy, happy, learning and engaged. Family hubs are more than just a programme. They do transform the way that we deliver services to families. We can achieve all of that by working together, engaging our local community, and I think one of the things that inspired me most when we were, I guess, working our way through the sort of third edition of the family hubs and what we were trying to achieve. And we came up with this saying that actually this isn't just supporting families to survive, this is supporting families to thrive. And transformation for me is seeing that the family hub isn't just a vehicle to deliver the 0 to 5 offer. It's not just a building that people access or people use to access parenting programs. It's so much more. The family hub is the heart of the community. The family hub has the reach into all of the different organisations that we work for. We actually got organisations to pledge what their contribution was. And actually, in pledging, what they were doing is showing their commitment to what it is that we were trying to achieve. And by showing their commitment, they were invested. And once people are invested, actually everyone wants to see the service blossom. And, of course, the children that we're supporting blossom. We've got integrated leadership teams now, I guess, managing our family hubs. And integrated leadership teams is a great way, again, that people feel invested and bought in order to deliver our early intervention offer right the way through from 0 to 19. My favourite bit of our journey to date is that I went to Westbourne Family Centre, which is in the north of Westminster, one of our most deprived areas. And the Family Centre were running a Dungeons and Dragons club for a group of teenagers who were neurodiverse. Now, these teenagers were either on the edge of exclusion or having significant intervention to support them in school. Anyway, I went into the children's centre, and I was talking to the children and the facilitators of the group. And this 15-year-old boy who was excluded from school came alive as the dungeon master playing this game. And the 7 or 8 children who were playing along with him were absolutely gripped by his storytelling ability. I was gripped by his storytelling ability. Well, very quickly we were thinking to ourselves, well, hang on a minute, how do we connect what they're doing with our family hub model? And we brought our libraries into the leadership arenas. We now have games libraries running from various outlets across the boroughs, both boroughs, Kensington and Chelsea and Westminster. And actually, we've got adolescents re-engaged with our libraries. We have 40 young dragons coming into our libraries every week, just through a connection, an ad hoc connection with the family hub. I mention that because actually, when you talk about sustainability, you want people to get connected. This is all about, everything we do is about relationships and connections, and the family hub is the way that we do it. I'll stop there and ask if anyone's got any questions. Not about camels, though, please. Dungeons and Dragons, maybe.
Hello, I'm Carly. I'm actually a family mediator, so slightly different to most of the people in the room. I was just interested to understand whether you have in your hubs or linked in with your hubs anything around family separation and support for families who are separating or have separated.
Very fortunately, I've got the 2 heads of our early help services in both Westminster and Kensington, and they're nodding furiously. So yes, we do. And I think just on that, the other thing that I think has been really useful is through our registrar service. Now, whenever a birth is registered, the family hub is notified so that actually we can make sure we're sending out information to all new mums. And that was really important during COVID because actually knowing who the new mums were meant that we could reach out and make sure that they had support around them. And, where we weren't able perhaps to provide support in the usual way, what we were able to do is make sure we were utilising relationships, again, across the professional agencies, but also with the voluntary sector and with our parent champions, maternity champions, to make sure that everyone had the support that they needed. And that's really important. So, I think relationships matter in every sense, and supporting parents through difficult relationships is important.
Thank you. Catherine Barker, Spurgeons. You mentioned birth registration. Are you interested in actually having birth registration going on in the family hubs so that you actually bring families in?
Yes, we do have that going on at the moment. Again, I'm looking very much to my left, and they're nodding at me. So yeah, absolutely.
You have some very good colleagues, obviously.
Absolutely. As I say, it takes a village to bring up a child. For me to do my job, I tell you, I am absolutely reliant on all the people around me. And it goes back to that thing, isn't it, about actually by working together, by being a team, you can create much more than what you can do as an individual, and I'm a firm believer in that. And it is that bit about, really thinking outside of the box about which services families come into contact with and how actually we make the link through the family hub. Somebody once told me that there's research that says the best point in anyone's life to give them parenting advice is when they register the birth of their first child, because that's the time they're most optimistic.
I've just got a question from online. So, which roles make up your integrated leadership teams?
Wow, that's going to be a tough question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to field it to Madhu, who's just sitting there. Madhu, do you mind answering that?
Service for early help in Westminster. We have health visiting leads, school nursing leads, we have various community partners, we have the youth hub leads, we have a social work representative as well as the targeted early help lead, and we have libraries. So that makes up the main, and schools, yes, how could I forget schools? Our integrated leadership team meets once a month, and then there's a wider partnership network that meets once a month to discuss cases, so a family hub panel.
Hello, Dawn Henny from London Borough of Newman. I'm quite interested in the role of schools within family hubs, and what does that look like in your area?
Yes, that's a good question, because we have to keep asking ourselves that, and I think it changes over time. So we have a head teacher who chairs the integrated leadership team in one of the areas, and she's very engaged. But you know, I think it's not a secret, is it, that schools look at the world through one lens, and colleagues in social care look at the world through another. And sometimes we talk away and we think we're understanding what each other are saying, and we walk away and we've totally misinterpreted. So we have family navigators who work out of the family hubs and into primary healthcare settings, and we're working into schools. But actually, we've just changed, or we've just introduced school navigators who now work inside of schools, and work into the family hub. So we've got that outward and inward interface, which we think is going to really strengthen the relationship. I'm sure it's not a surprise to everyone in the room. You know, our primary schools in particular are seeing lots of challenges post-COVID with difficult behavioural presentations, and are looking to us more and more to say, you know, what is it that you can do to help us? Most of our schools are trained in trauma-informed approaches. Again, that was all facilitated through the Family Hub. We have inclusion projects in both boroughs to look at those children who are on the edge of exclusion, and then wrap support around the child, their parents and the school. And very much building on what the offer is and how we deliver services in the Family Hub, which is very much on a relational model using systemic approaches. But yeah, I think the relationship with schools is always interesting, because you know they're faced with the agenda where they've got to promote children learning. It gets very difficult when there are behavioural challenges, particularly you know schools who are in some of the more deprived areas, and so that interface with the Family Hub becomes really important. But communicating in ways that we both understand is equally important. Dare I mention, and I have an awful tendency to go off-piste, but the Games Library is my latest fad connected to the Family Hub. And one of our schools, in fact, it is the school who lead our Family Hub in the north of Westminster. And they were saying, look, you know, we think we're going to have more money to support children who have got these difficult behavioural presentations. We want an alternative provision in our site. It's going to cost X. We all gasped and thought, well, we don't have that much money in the system. And so we thought out of the box, really out of the box, this one. And we got one of their teachers onto the steering group of the Games Library, and then got them working with a games developer who developed this game called No Thanks Evil, which is an adventure game for primary school children, in which it really teaches numeracy and literacy skills in a really fun way. But actually playing games requires that there's boundaries and to follow rules. So we set up a whole programme of children playing this game, and then realised, actually, we've got to get their parents involved, because parents have got to see the benefit of play. So again, through the relationship with the Family Hub, we're able to facilitate sessions with their parents to show parents the value of sitting down and playing with their children, offering the sessions in the school, and just trying to change the ways that people think about they're dealing with some of these problems.
Could you tell us a bit about how you work with families of teenagers? Because early help is very often sort of everybody has small children in mind, whereas early help can very often also apply to teenagers.
Yeah, so I'm going to look at Natasha because she's nodding, and she's going to talk a little bit about the work we've got going on with adolescents, and then I'll add something about the games library.
Okay. So we've approached it from two different directions. One is through early help and the family hubs, and trying to think with schools about what they need, what support they need to support those children that they are identifying early. And we've been trying to bind in youth clubs and hubs. Thank you. And trying to bind in youth clubs and hubs into that family hub conversation, as Madhu talked about earlier, in order to be able to make that work, for people to understand that as well as accessing youth work, you can get parenting support. We've then used the youth clubs in the daytimes, because they're pretty empty in the daytimes, to then invite our community partners. So, for example, we've got a large Horn of Africa Somali community that are well served by a really great voluntary sector. We've got them to come in and provide parenting. And using that conversation earlier about bending spend and getting money from elsewhere, we've used London Violence Reduction Unit money to fund some of that work for parent champions. So we're also training up parents to then support other parents. So that's a kind of example, I'd say. The other thing we've done is we've used youth justice team services. Most of you will probably recognise if I say that your youth justice teams don't have very many children anymore compared to the heyday. But we've still got clinicians in there from the NHS. We've still got drug workers, etc. So we're using those through the negotiation to then help us deliver to a more early help prevention kind of element. And we're training up multiple staff to do non-violent resistance, which we've been finding has been really helpful. So a lot of different ways, galvanising some of the stuff we knew was evidence-based and worked, but also working with partners more widely in the community.
Yeah, we did a survey out to our young people. 13% of our young people said they'd access a youth club. 56% said they access services in the library, and 72% said leisure services is what they want to see investments in. And so it's making sure that actually, again, through the Family Hub, we're communicating what the offers are available for adolescents. One of our schools, this time in K&C, approached us and they said, look, we want to run a project. We want to run a project for children who don't ordinarily come to the attention of services because they just sit underneath the radar. And we want to run a 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. club for their year nines. And again, they were looking to the local authority and say, how much can you give us? And, you know, the reality is we didn't have any money. But actually what we did have is a plethora of services that we could connect with to build that 7 till 7 offer 5 days a week. So again, it's about offering sports activities. Dare I say the Games Club was a big part of that. But actually, you know, joking aside, we've got 40 adolescents now coming into our libraries to play Dungeons and Dragons, which, you know, is just great when you think about this whole heap of public health outcomes that go beyond learning and go beyond reading, but, you know, social skills, emotional well-being, really, really good. So, yeah, I think the Family Hub can't just be an offer for the 0 to 5s, has to be an offer for 0 to 19. It really is about that early intervention and making sure that we're connecting everything up and involving the community in that. That's the way it's sustainable. I think I've run out of time.